be together, especially after the events of last Shabbat were so difficult for our people who were there and impacted directly in Colleyville, and our people throughout the United States and throughout the world. Coming together while we are still so shaken from an event like that is, I hope, something that we will all take strength and comfort in, even in this virtual space. And of course, the advantage of this virtual space is that we have people from miles away who can join us. So from wherever you're tuning in, we welcome you. We're so glad to be together this evening. And I'd like us to pay special attention to really coming into presence with ourselves, coming into groundedness and centeredness as we enter into this gift of an island in time. We need comfort, we need connection, and here we are to offer that to each other. So in order to be in a stance of Kabbalat Shabbat, of receiving Shabbat, I invite you to, even with your physical posture, to come into a stance of receptivity, maybe to roll your shoulders back to make space in your heart space, your physical heart space, your metaphorical heart space, to be open to receive and open to give your presence, which is such a gift to everybody else here with us on the Zoom, with us watching the live stream. A palpable sense of connection. And I don't know about you, but I felt a palpable sense of connection to our people, both last Shabbat as the events were unfolding, as we held our collective breath, as we celebrated collectively about the outcome, and then in the days that have followed. Of course, these traumatic events, frightening events, unfortunately do have the flip side is that they have a positive impact on our sense of connection in some deep way. But may we carry that sense of connection, community, and unity together forward, even when we are not, God willing, always in a traumatic or post-traumatic moment as a people. But may this Shabbat allow us to reconnect to one another, to our people, near and far, to our tradition, the wisdom of our tradition, that we need to take a holy pause in our week to come into a deeper connection to ourselves and to others and that which transcends and connects us. So I invite you to take a few deep breaths out of that opened, perhaps loosened heart space, as we enter in together. We'll bring the beautiful light to cast away the darkness. If you have your Shabbat candles nearby and would like to bring them into the screen to share your light, that would be wonderful. As always, the prayer book, the digital prayer book link is in the chat if you would like to follow along, and our candle lighting blessing is on page 2. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Let's sing together on page 10 Perhaps you want to look at your candles while you sing this if you have them nearby. We'll sing these very simple words. Ma yafeh hayom. How beautiful is this day. How beautiful is this island in time, this Shabbat. How much we appreciate the gift of this time. Ma yafeh hayom. Shabbat Shalom. 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 Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Before we sing Shalom Aleichem, would anyone like to share any bit of simcha, of joy, any occasion that you marked or are marking soon, would like to share with the community? Any simcha shout out? We would love to hear those. If anyone on the Zoom wants to unmute or put it in the chat, and if anyone on Facebook would like to use the Facebook chat to let us know of something happy, please do so. I've already told everybody last Shabbat about my two birthdays in my family. If you were with me Saturday morning, you know it was Idan's 8th birthday last Friday and Gavi's 16th birthday on Tuesday. So those are my simcha shout-outs, but we need to hear some more. Could be something small. It doesn't have to be a birthday.
Hello?
Yes. Rhonda, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi. Well, it's Harvey, my husband's 88th birthday today.
Today is Harvey's birthday. Well,
Yeah.
I remembered to call Harvey last year on his birthday, and I'm just finding out I did not remember to call Harvey this year on his birthday. I am so sorry, but so happy for you. Happy birthday, Harvey. I hope that you've had a wonderful day, and we'll have a wonderful year ahead. Happy, happy. Mazal Tov. Yom Huledet Sameach. Thank you for
Thank
sharing
you.
that.
He's upstairs and I'm looking at it here, so I hope he's listening.
Okay, well, if he's not, please pass along our warmest wishes to Harvey. And
Thank
Andy
you.
shared, Andy's daughter, Andy and Sharon's daughter, Jenny, is en route to LA, so she and her sister Molly will be together for their birthdays next week. That is fabulous. So nice to hear. Bits of joy. So keep thinking. Maybe you'll think of something and want to share it in the chat. We're going to move into Shalom Aleichem on page 24. And I wanted to share, by way of introduction, a beautiful kavanah or intention by Rabbi Lawrence Kushner. He says, we understand that ordinary people are messengers of the Most High. They go about their tasks in holy anonymity, often even unknown to themselves. Yet if they had not been there, if they had not said what they said or did what they did, it would not be the way it is now. We would not be the way we are now. Never forget that you, too, yourself, may be a messenger, perhaps even one whose errand extends over several lifetimes. So in Shalom Aleichem, we welcome the messengers or the angels of peace, but we, in those beautiful words of Rabbi Kushner, we can be messengers. We can be divine messengers going about our tasks, sometimes unknowingly. We don't know the incredible impact we can have on another person. So we honor that capacity within us as we sing Shalom Aleichem, welcome to the angels of peace, the messengers of peace, messengers of the Most High. Page 24. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem LaShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruchuni LeShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzidchem LeShalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech, Malachei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Turn back to page 14 to sing a little bit of one of the psalms we don't often sing in Kabbalat Shabbat, but it is traditionally there. Psalm 97. We'll sing the words Or Zarua La Tzadik Uli Shelev Simcha Simchu Tzadikim Balonai Behodu Lezecher Kodsho. And that is, a light is sown for the righteous and for the upright of heart, joy. Take joy in the righteous ones, those who rejoice in Adonai, and break into joyous songs of praise. Or Zarua La Tzadik Uli Shelev Simcha. Or Zarua La Tzadik Uli Lev Simcha. Simchu Tzadikim Ba'adonai Vehodu Lezecher Kodsho. Simchu Tzadikim Ba'adonai Vehodu Lezecher Kodsho. We'll share on the screen the words of Ana Bechoach. Please, God, in your strength, with the strength of your right hand, untie our knots. Whether those are knots of stress or anxiety that manifest as knots in our shoulders and necks, or whether you want to envision those knots in another way, whatever they are for you, spiritual, emotional, physical knots, we call upon the strength of the divine and the strength that we have within us, created in the divine image. That strength we can access, that koach. I think in a time like this past week following last Shabbat, we need to access our koach, our spiritual strength. Ana bekoach, bekoach, gedulat yemincha, yemincha. Tatir tzerura, kabel rinat amcha, sagvenu torenu nora. Ana bekoach, bekoach, gedulat yemincha, yemincha. Tatir tzerura, kabel rinat amcha, sagvenu torenu nora. Yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai 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 dai, yai dai dai dai. dai 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 da dai. Yai dai 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 da dai. Yai dai dai dai. And I just noticed in the words, we're not only saying untie our knots, but we're saying kabel rinat amcha, receive, God, the joy of your people. When we are open, loose, and receptive, which may not be our go-to posture, whether emotionally or physically, but when we are able to offer up our joy, our gratitude to others, and ultimately to God. So we say, Kabel rinat amcha, take in, receive the joy of your people. Okay. Josh is going to lead us in Lecha Dodi tonight. We'll sing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. And on 9, if you can rise in body or spirit and face the entrance to your home and bow, we will welcome Shabbat in that way. Thank you, Josh.
Always, Rabbi. Lecha lecha dodi, likran likrat kala, b'nei pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likran likrat kala, b'nei pnei Shabbat nekabela. La 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 la. Lecha dodi, likran likrat kala, b'nei pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor, b'dibur echad, lishmi anu el hameyochad, Adonai echad, u'shmo echad, l'shemo tiferet v'liti la 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 la. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Verse 2. Likrat Shabbat, lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor haberacha, mirosh mikem nesucha. Sof ma'aseh b'machshavatechi, la 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 la. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Verse 5. Itoreri, kiva orech umi ori, uri shirtaberi, kivod Adonai alaych nigla la 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 la. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Verse 9. Boi v'shalom, atzeret bala, gam b'simcha u'v'zolha, tochenu le'am segula. Boi kalha, ya la 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 la. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. La 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 la. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha dodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
Thank you, Josh. I think Shabbat feels very warmly welcomed. And now let's enter into the space of wow. Did anyone see the cloud formations a couple of late afternoons ago here in Boston? I took some pictures, so any of you who see my nature photos on Instagram might have seen it that way, but I hope you saw it live and in real time. And if you didn't see it, let that be a lesson to you. Look up more. But it was just a regular day. There was nothing particularly happening, I think. Weather-wise, it was just the most unusual and beautiful, like a painting, cloud formation. So did anyone notice anything like that in nature or anything else in your life, large or small, that was an awe-generating experience? If you want to go ahead and share, go ahead. Larry.
I thought that the outpouring from the Christian and Islamic communities in support of the Jewish congregation in Colleyville was very, very inspiring and so heartening.
Yes, thank you.
Truly a wow moment.
Yes. I don't know if any of you saw the photograph of Rabbi Charlie being embraced by the imam in Texas, who was one of the clergy awaiting word at the local church. It was an incredible image. Anyone else? Okay, that's my mom. She's talking, but she's muted. Mom, you're muted. Still muted. Go ahead.
Here. Okay,
There
can
you
you hear me now?
Yes.
I think it's a good metaphor when you said, look up. Yes, we have to look up.
Mm.
We have to look up in all ways.
Mm-hmm. But
That's
the name of
part of
that
our
movie, the movie
Yes.
that's so popular, it says "Don't look up."
Yeah.
But yes,
True.
look
That's
up.
true.
So in a way of remembering to be hopeful. Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Look up. Right.
Yeah, look up.
Notice beauty and hope where you might not.
Right, exactly.
Thank you.
You know, I saw buds on the trees.
Wow.
They're actually there
There are buds
Even
on the
if-
trees.
on the trees, even though the snow is there. If you look closely, they're tiny, but they're there.
Wow.
So again, there's hope.
Thank you. The trees must know that it was just Tu B'Shvat.
Exactly.
Tu B'Shvat, maybe they've been emailing with their friends in the land of Israel.
Of course.
Their colleague trees, where that process does happen around now. And yeah, it's a little early here. And
Yeah,
but we can see that as a sign of hope. That's great.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Anyone else? Beautiful. So let's sing our Magadlu round. Michelle just shared in the chat. Michelle works with students with all kinds of needs and different abilities, and she said a student walking out of school to his mom for the first time at age 4 with a walker. Michelle, that must have been amazing to witness. Wow, what a blessing. Thank you so much for sharing that image with us. So we can turn, if you're in the book, to page 342. If you want to make it easy for yourself, just sing hallelujah, and you don't even have to be on key or anything. Nobody will know, but I do hope that you're singing anyway in your own spaces. And I look forward to hearing your voices again soon. Hallelujah, 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 Magadlu, Masechaya. Hallelujah, me'od amku machshevotecha. Hallelujah, Magadlu, Masechaya, Me'od amku machshevo techa. Hallelujah, hallelujah. We'll turn to Baruch Hu on page 28. Please rise in body or spirit and face east, if you're able to do that, towards Jerusalem. And if you'd like to unmute for the responsive line, it would be wonderful to hear your voices. Our Torah portion this week describes a cacophony, so it's very appropriate to hear cacophonous voices in our responsive line. And I'm just going to pause for a moment because I need to plug in my computer. It's just told me. Okay. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Va'ed. We can be seated, and Josh is going to play a beautiful interpretation of the Ma'ariv Aravim blessing, roll into dark, roll into light.
Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Borei yom v'layla, goel or mipnei choshech, goel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Roll into dark, roll into light. Night becomes day, day turns to night. Borei yom v'layla, goel or mipnei choshech, goel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, v'choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, v'choshech mipnei or.
Thank you, Josh. For our second blessing before we recite the Shema, we always have a love blessing. In the evening, it's called Ahavat Olam, and in the morning, it's called Ahavat Rabbah. Both refer to the Torah, which we receive in this parasha. We receive the Ten Commandments in this Torah portion, Yitro, that we read this Shabbat. But our tradition calls us to always see this as a gift of love. So you see here on the screen share, we have the beautiful words of Rabbi Rami Shapiro, who wrote this interpretive blessing, interpretive translation of our Ahavat Olam blessing. So feel free to read along, aloud, or simply to listen. We are loved by an unending love. We are embraced by arms that find us even when we are hidden from ourselves. We are touched by fingers that soothe us, even when we are too proud for soothing. We are counseled by voices that guide us, even when we are too embittered to hear. We are loved by an unending love. We are supported by hands that uplift us, even in the midst of a fall. We are urged on by eyes that meet us, even when we are too weak for meeting. We are loved by an unending love. Embraced, touched, soothed, and counseled, ours are the arms, the fingers, the voices. Ours are the hands, the eyes, the smiles. We are loved by an unending love. And actually, as I was reading it, reminded me of what Rabbi Lawrence Kushner wrote and what I read earlier about Shalom Aleichem, that we can be messengers of God, that we can be angels for one another, can be the ones who bring love and peace and healing to one another. And as Rabbi Shapiro here says, ours are the arms, the fingers, the voices, the eyes. So may we feel that koach, that power, that energy that we can access within us. It's a power that connects us to each other and connects us to the source of all life that has placed that divine spark and energy within all of us. So I'm going to close out this blessing as we enter into the Shema. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. Let's unmute to say the Shema together. Page 34, sorry. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Go back on mute, but we'll chant together V'ahavta, page 36. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. We turn to page 40 for Mi Chamocha. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nedar ba'kodesh, nora tehilot osei fele, nora tehilot osei fele. מלכותך ראו בניך בוקע הים לפני משה ומרים, Zeli anu ve'ameru Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Yai-dai, da-dai-dai, ya-da-da-dai, yai-da-da-dai, yai-dai, da-dai, yai-da-da-dai-dai-dai. Ai-dai-da-dai-dai, ya-da-dai-dai-da-da-dai, ya-dai-dai-dai-dai, ya-da-da-da-dai, yai-dai. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. Page 42 at the top. השכיבנו אדוני אלוהינו לשלום והעמידנו שומרנו Lechaim. And now we pray that God spread over us a canopy of peace. Imagine that all the Jewish people are under that canopy, all sheltered and held, protected against the terrible threat of anti-Semitism. We are together. We are held and comforted and protected by simply being present with one another. When we ask God to spread over us a shelter of peace, we remind ourselves that we must be and create that shelter together. Maybe imagine what that looks like for you. What can you do to participate in the construction of a canopy of peace? Third line down, and then the concluding lines on page 42. Ofros aleinu sukat, sukat shelomecha. Ofros aleinu sukat, sukat shelomecha. Baruch ata Adonai haporei sukat shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. We'll turn to the Amidah beginning on page 46. If you'd like to pray the words with me of the first three blessings and then take some quiet time either with words of the prayer book or your own words this evening. We'll take some individual moments for prayer and then we'll join back together with a prayer for peace. We begin on page 46 with a prayer that we might be able to pray. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah. האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון גומל, חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסי אבות ואימהות, ומגבי גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו ביהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם, בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה. ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל, ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. We continue privately. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. Going to move from our prayer for peace to our prayer for healing. So if you are praying for anyone or anyone's in particular in need of healing of body or spirit and would like to bring their names into this space, those of you on Zoom can unmute or put names into the chat. And first I will share some names from our community for whom we are praying tonight. Danielle Ben Leah, Honey Sachs, Hannah Bat Moshe, Dina Rachel Bat Aryeh Vegalia, Cassandra Warshavsky, Chaya Blaima Bat Chaim, Chia Vasilia Ruchel, Jeffrey Colt, Yosef Ben Herschel Verut, Glenna Bub. I'd like to mention all those who are suffering with COVID and those who are caring for them, especially thinking of the healing of spirit that our healthcare workers are in need of. Anyone that you are remembering for healing tonight, go ahead and unmute if you have a name to share. Or put it in the chat, that would be fine also. And we're going to turn to the Misha Berach on page 253. Feel free to continue adding names if you wish, even as we are singing. I see Steve Fromm, Liesel, Jerry, Alan, Bruce, Susan, Elisa, Simon. We offer this prayer for all those in need of healing. I also want to highlight the need of healing for those who were held hostage last Shabbat in Colleyville and their families. Mi sheberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. So I'm going to share a few words about where we are in Torah briefly. We're in Parashat Yitro. Yitro is Jethro, as many of you know. That happens to be my husband's name. And Yitro is Moses' father-in-law, who encourages Moses about the very important task of delegation as part of leadership. As I always like to say whenever I'm speaking about this parsha, this was also long before I met my own Yitro. It was the parsha on which I first ever wrote a Devar Torah. When I was studying at the Harvard Divinity School and part of a minyan there, and I hadn't grown up really knowing how to do that, and one of my mentors there encouraged me long before I wanted to be a rabbi. I was studying academically for a degree in Jewish studies, a master's of theological studies, hoping to be an academic at that time. But this was the first parsha with which I really engaged with Torah and Torah commentary in that way. And it was my oldest son, Gavi's bar mitzvah parsha. So I thought about giving his Devar Torah and just checking to see if it sounded familiar to any of you. But I decided I would not do that. Didn't want to plagiarize. So I want to share just a really brief kind of question with you. We've studied over the years together about what happened at Mount Sinai. This parasha is the one in which we get the whole dramatic scene of the giving of the Ten Commandments. So whatever you picture in your mind, whether it's from the movie, the old movie, the Ten Commandments, or something else, a piece of art, maybe. Obviously, the Ten Commandments feature in so many pieces of art, and we often see them carved above the ark in a synagogue. So you may have an image of these tablets. But what is your image of what happened when the Israelites were standing at the foot of Mount Sinai, and Moses goes up and has a little one-on-one with God and comes back with the Ten Commandments? So in our Torah portion, there are a few different descriptions of what's going on here. Before and after the Ten Commandments themselves are given. But a couple of things I want to highlight. One is that this is the third month after they have been redeemed from slavery. This is a free people in its infancy of freedom. And they are children. They are we've spoken about this, and some of you have brought this up in various study sessions about the evolution and the growth of the people of Israel that you can see and that you can map onto how infants grow into toddlers, into preschoolers, into children, and so on. So they're really early in their development as a people, where the idea of freedom and all that that means and all of the responsibilities and anxieties of freedom are new to them. One can imagine that they're very tired and that the wilderness stretches before them without much in the way of mile markers, shall we say, right? And imagine children in the back seat saying, "Mom, Dad, are we there yet?" You know, maybe they're continuing some of their kvetching to Moses. But here they are suddenly at the foot of a huge mountain. And our text says that Moses goes up to God and that God calls to Moses from the mountain and says, you've seen what I did to the Egyptians. You saw my power in your redemption. I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to me. And now if you're going to obey me and keep my covenant, now we have this language of brit, of covenant, then you shall be my treasured possession among all the peoples. Indeed, all the earth is mine, but you shall be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. So there's going to be something very special about you, but it's conditional on you entering into this covenant and agreeing to accept, but not accept in a passive way, accept in a very active way, the wisdom that I am going to give you about how you should lead your lives. But it is never, although it's so dramatic, and there's, and again, if you're imagining the movie and Moses coming down and the tablets and everything, it isn't, though there are various interpretations that suggest the people were pretty coerced, I really like to think of it as this was a really brave and active choice, that the people said, yes, we will do this. All that the Lord has spoken, the people say, we will do. Now, what's interesting about that verse is that it says all the people answered as one, as one. So this is before they've heard anything. They haven't even gotten the 10 Commandments. And they're sort of saying, maybe because, are they afraid? Are they trembling because this mountain is so imposing? Are they trembling because God is giving them, Moses is giving them God's word at this moment? But they're saying all that God has spoken, we will do. And they say it in as one, in one voice. Then we get the scene where 3 days later, there's thunder, there's lightning, a dense cloud comes upon the mountain. A shofar blasts very loudly. And the people, it tells us, the people trembled. Mount Sinai was all in smoke, for God had come down upon it in fire. The smoke rose like the smoke of a kiln, and the whole mountain trembled violently. The blare of the shofar got louder, and God answered him in thunder. Okay, so as I said, very dramatic. But what happens next, I'm going to skip forward a few verses, is God says to Moses, don't tell the people, don't come near. Don't come near. I'm going to give you this wisdom, and you will bring it back to them. And then Moses does so and gives over the 10 Commandments. Now, remember, the people said all that we are about to be told we will do, and they said that as one voice. And then it says, all the people, v'chol ha'am, again, a sense of unity, people. Re'im et hakolot. They saw, although interestingly it's in the present tense, they are seeing the voices. Why isn't it in the past tense? Maybe because this moment of receiving wisdom is always present for us. V'chol ha'am re'im et hakolot ve'et halepidim ve'et kol hashofar ve'et ha'ar ashan ve'yar ha'am v'yanu v'yamdu merachok. All the people witnessed the thunder and lightning, but literally they saw the lightning. They saw the thunder, they heard the lightning, their senses are all mixed up. The blare of the horn and the mountain smoking, and when the people saw it, they fell back and stood at a distance. So this is a people that is anxious and afraid, but a people that has been able to be as one in this critical moment. But interestingly, later interpretations in the Midrash tell us they push back against this notion of unity, actually. And they ask us to think about the notion of particularity, and particularity in the service of unity. Shemot Rabbah, a collection of Midrash on the book of Exodus, says, all the people saw the thunders. It is not written thunder, kol, but rather thunders, kolot. Rabbi Yochanan teaches that when God's voice came forth at Mount Sinai, it divided itself into 70 human languages so that the whole world might understand it, and every nation heard it in their own language. 70 faces of Torah, we sometimes call it, 70 languages. Kolot, God's voice was not a kol, not a voice, not a clap of thunder, but kolot. We translate it as thunder or thunders, but it really means voices. We have another very well-known midrash that every person who stood at Mount Sinai heard this wisdom, heard the commandments, heard the voice of God according to their capacity to hear. Young people heard it in the way that they could hear it. Old people heard it in the way that they could hear it. But more specifically, every one of the supposedly 600,000 souls or so that were at the foot of Sinai heard it in the way that only they could. Each of us has a unique capacity to hear and understand. And I believe that when we receive Torah, it is through our entirely unique filter. And the commentators and the Jews who came before us, every person who's ever engaged with Torah, who has ever lived, which tradition tells us every one of us was there at Sinai at that moment, but everyone has filtered that wisdom through our own experiences, our own questions, who we particularly are. So I think our tradition highlights for us that our unique neshama, our core self, all that makes us who we are and unlike anybody else, is absolutely necessary in order to have the people, the one, in order to understand the oneness of the divine. It's a paradox, but it's so powerful. We need 70 nations, maybe we need all faiths in order to understand truth. We need communities of people who have different experiences and different questions in order to understand the oneness of all and that deep truth. And as individuals, we need each one of us and our own individual truths and experiences in order to access echad, yichud, unity. And what is the truth of God? The closest thing we have to a creed in our tradition, at least from the Bible, that God is one. Adonai echad. So whatever happened at Sinai exactly with the thunder, the lightning, was it quiet? Another midrash says it got very quiet and still, and only then everyone could hear. But I really believe that the concept of every one of us as an essential piece of the everyone, and that everyone, that people in relationship to God, depends on the every one of us. Every one of us as an active partner in the receiving of Torah. And that means every day, every moment, the Torah, the wisdom that is available to us through our relationships, through our experiences, through growing and evolving as people and coming to know ourselves. We need each other. We need each other to access truth. So may we continue on this Shabbat and into the week to follow and always to be uniquely who we are with and for one another, so that we can be an Am Echad, one people, reflecting the unity of the one who transcends and connects us all. So Shabbat Shalom. I'll leave you with those thoughts. I'm eager to hear any questions or insights that come up if you want to stay on after the service or email me or call me during the week. We're going to close our service this evening with Aleinu and then Mourner's Kaddish. Please rise in body or spirit. Aleinu is on page 282. עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוצר ארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגופי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Page 285. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו At this time, we have the opportunity to recite Mourner's Kaddish, and I know that we have some of you here who are in an initial period of mourning for a close loved one, some of you who are within a year of mourning, some of you who are observing a yahrzeit and anniversary of a death. As a community, we are remembering Stephanie Beth Kotzen Reamer, wife of Robert L. Reamer, sister of Linda Kotzen Paresky and David Paresky, mother of Adam Reamer and Mara Goldstein and Bob Goldstein, grandmother of Hannah, Sophie, and Lila. And Mara, I see that you're here on the Zoom, and we are wishing you and your family so much comfort. Want to note that Stephanie is also a cousin of our member Larry Green. We wish you all comfort during this time of mourning. We are also remembering as a community Stanley Dryben, devoted husband of Carol, loving father of Bruce, and father-in-law of Audrey Winter Dryben, and the cherished grandfather of Zachary. If you are observing a yahrzeit or are in a time of mourning and would like to raise your hand, and I'll call on you or put in the chat those whom you are remembering. We're also sharing our weekly yahrzeit list for our community here on the screen. Would anyone like to share a name? Karen, I see you. I know you're remembering your mom, Norma, and mother-in-law, Luz Maria. Oh, I see both of you there in the screen. Hi. And Michelle and family, you're remembering Ethan. Alberta, remembering your mother, Frances Grossman. Brian, you're remembering your father, David Mandel. Charlotte Berman is also being remembered. May the memory of all we have mentioned tonight and all those we hold in our hearts be for an eternal blessing. May we honor them in word and in deed. May we comfort and be comforted. We are on page 294. Please rise if you're reciting Kaddish or if it is your custom to rise. Words here are on the screen as well. Yitgadal v'yitkadash Shema Rabbah. Be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'gala u'vizman koriv ve'imru Amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba Mevorach Le'alam U'Lalmei Almaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh V'yithadar V'yit'aleh V'yithalal Shmei Dekudesha B'richu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tushbechata V'nechemata Da'amiran Be'alma V'imru Amen. Yehi Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya V'chayim Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'imromav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'imru Amen. Oseh Shalom B'imromav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru Amen. So I want to invite us to be seated, and I'd like to share just a few announcements with you. Tomorrow morning, we're very fortunate to have our new rabbinic intern, but not new to TOS, Naomi Gertland, Hebrew College rabbinical student. She'll be sharing a Torah study tomorrow morning on Zoom at 10:30 a.m. So you'll be looking at another part of this week's Torah portion. This Sunday is Limud Boston, a festival of Jewish learning that will take place online from 12 to 5. We are co-sponsoring and helping get the word out. You can go to their website, limudboston.org, or see our newsletter for more information and to register for any of the learning sessions that you might wish. That could be a wonderful activity for a cold January Sunday. Next Thursday, I will be leading my Torah for the Heart and Mind again at 9 a.m. All are welcome, even if you've never been before. I think we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary of this weekly class, and thank you, and we're eager for and really welcoming of any participants at any time. It's a drop-in class. You can come once, you can come every time. It's a nice way to start the day, and it's about 45 minutes long. Please join us next week for virtual Friday night and Shabbat morning services at 6 p.m. on Friday, 10:30 Saturday morning. And we are unfortunately continuing on Zoom just so that we can get past this surge, but I hear there is some good news that it looks like we're starting to move in the right direction here in the Boston area, and we certainly hope that as soon as it's possible, which should be around mid-February, is our guess right now, in consultation with our Health and Safety Committee. We will then welcome folks into the building to be with us for services once again, and certain programs. I do want everyone to know we've been, as we have since June 2020, our preschool has been running, and we are doing all kinds of things to make that safe and doing a whole lot of testing, and our staff has been remarkable in keeping that going, and our religious school as well has been able to be open, except for the week right after break. We've been open, and our staff again has been incredible, testing every child as they come in the door to make sure it is safe for everybody. And we are adapting, we are pivoting what our people has always done. So may we know a better spring ahead where we can see one another's whole selves in person. And those of you who aren't geographically close, may you come to visit soon. We'll conclude with Kiddush and Motzi on page 5. If you would like to bring your juice or wine and challah to the screen to share virtually. Soon the technology will be available to actually share the challah and juice through the screen. I'm looking forward to that. I hope Apple or Zoom or whomever is getting on that. But for now, page 5, and please rise for Kiddush and Motzi. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen, ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצה בשבת קודשו באהבה וברצון הנחילנו, זיכרון למעשה וראשית, כי הוא יום תחילה למקראי קודש, זכר ליציאת מצרים, כי בנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת מכל העמים, ושבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. אמן. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, המוציא לך מן הארץ. אמן. Now that Coco has enjoyed her challah, and Hershey hasn't noticed yet, go tell your brother. We can be seated and we'll close with, I thought we would close with something different tonight. In light of what our people experienced last week, and just that this is a little bit of a tough January. So I want us to think about crossing over a narrow bridge together and sing Gesher Tsar Me'od, which actually is a very joyful melody. And I love it because it acknowledges the pain and challenge that life can bring, but it acknowledges that we can be brave. And I always imagine a group of us as we were in the wilderness and at Sinai, being together, crossing the narrow bridge together, holding each other up. So we're going to conclude with Kol HaOlam Kulo, Gesher Tsar Me'od. It's on page 339 in the digital or hard copy book. It means all the world is a narrow bridge, and the essence of life, the ikar, is not to be afraid. Kol ha'olam kulo Gesher Tsar Me'od, Gesher Tsar Me'od, Gesher Tsar Me'od, Kol ha'olam kulo Gesher Tsar Me'od, Gesher Tsar Me'od. V'ha'ikar, v'ha'ikar, lo lefached klal, v'ha'ikar, v'ha'ikar, lo lefached klal. Kol ha'olam kulo Gesher Tsar Me'od, Gesher Tsar Me'od, Gesher Tsar Me'od, Kol ha'olam kulo Gesher Tsar Me'od, Gesher Tsar Me'od. May we be together for many more steps along this bridge. So nice to be with all of you. We'll say goodbye to folks on the live stream.